Yet another beautiful day for riding. I think it's going to change next week and get a bit wet, so I'm making the most of it today. And while we pick our way up this hill, I'll tell you a little about the bike. So this is the non-R version, so it's a little more road focused, a little more accessible, and it starts at £10,999. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you can see the view there, but it is incredible. Oh, I think I'm in for a good one today. But yeah, I'd been really looking forward to getting this bike. Firstly, because I've never ridden the 790 Adventure, and of course that's got a reputation as like one of the best, if not the best, middleweight adventure bikes on the market. But secondly, I did borrow the 890 Duke R last year, and one of the best things about that bike for me was the engine, the 890 parallel twin, and it puts out 120 horsepower on that bike, but it's the same one in this, just detuned a little, so produces its torque lower, doesn't make as much top end power, but it's still 105 horsepower, so plenty to go at. 8,000 revs it makes that, so really it's like a bike of two halves with that engine. It's got that mid-range torquey twinny grunt, but also it will spin up and it properly flies. Puts a grin on my face just in the same way that the 890 Duke R did. So the combination of those two things, you know, the 790 platform but with that updated 890 engine, I just couldn't resist. It's one of the first bikes I asked for from KTM this year. So we climbed up pretty quickly there, and I guess we're on the top now and just follow it along. I see what they mean about it being broken tarmac. It's pretty rough. You can probably hear from my voice while I'm seated anyway. Speaking of which, it's 200mm of travel front and rear on this bike, so plenty of travel there to soak up this kind of stuff. WP Apex suspension, so their own in-house brand. It's not adjustable at the front, and then there's preload and rebound on this bike at the rear, but I'm not too bothered about that. I think a lot of people just like to jump on a bike like this and see how it goes. You can avoid most of the big bumps here if you pick your way between them. And again, versus the R model, the brakes are a little bit spec'd down as well, so they're KTM own branded as opposed to the Brembos, I think, on the other models. But you know, it's easy to get sucked in by the marketing and branding, but ultimately these are totally fine. I don't want these to charge across the road as I come past. Nice and slow will do it. Cheers, mate. So as I was saying, the brakes on this, you know, they're plenty good enough, realistically. You don't need the big brand names to get good braking performance. And then you've got an 18-inch rear, 21-inch front, so proper, you know, adventure size of wheel. And it's got decent Avon, I think they're the Trail Rider tyres. Oh, look at that huge cow. Please don't run at me. It's got a calf as well. But those look spiky, those big horns. Yeah, it's solid all round this bike. If you just want something that's well spec'd, but you know, you don't need the proper top-notch job, then this is ideal. And actually the seat height is 850 in its highest setting on this bike, but 830 in its lowest. And for a lot of people, it might be preferable just to be able to dab a foot down that little bit more easily. It does add some reassurance if you're not a particularly great off-road rider like myself. I mean, who wouldn't want to come and ride in places like this? I love doing it, but I didn't grow up riding dirt bikes or anything like that. But I've got to say, I love this kind of thing. Easygoing gravel roads where you don't really see anybody and you just get spectacular views, no traffic. And this is a perfect tool for doing it. You know, easy on the motorway to get out here, plenty enough power to cruise along and overtake at 70, and plenty enough power to have some good fun on the twisties that you get all around these, you know, the Brecons and this kind of area. But when you do get onto this stuff, and I'm sure it could do plenty more difficult trails than this in the right hands, you know, it's really sure-footed and confidence inspiring. I wonder how much of that is down to the way that the fuel tank is positioned. So if you're not familiar, you do fuel it up here, but there are tanks sort of hung down either side of the bike, either side of the engine. It almost looks like a Boxer twin, but with plastic tank covers down there. I think it was introduced on the 790, but it's on quite a few of their adventure bikes now. And it just holds the fuel low, so the center of gravity is nice and low. But also they say that it stops the fuel sloshing, so when it does slosh up high, obviously it has more leverage up there and affects the feel of the bike, whereas this is, yeah, all held pretty low. Wow. Lots of sheep and lambs. I mean, that was a very short little blast over the top of there, but what a road. See, this is where the B line can get a little confusing. I think it's saying to go that way. We'll just have to give it a go. Clearly not the most challenging off-road route, that. But I do have a huge bag of camera gear on my back, and also it's an 11 grand bike that's not mine, so probably for the best today that I stick to stuff like that. I absolutely love this bike. The engine is so good, so versatile. Quick shifter fitted as well, and you can switch it on and off through the switch gear, so if you do want it on for that sporty riding, then it does add a little bit of something. About those fuel tanks though, I did get a question on Instagram which was like, what if it goes over and then they get punctured and then fuel leaks out and then it sets on fire and then the whole thing blows up? I mean, it's a valid concern. Of course you wouldn't want that to happen while you were out for a little ride, but from what I can tell from reading up on it, KTM have drop tested it extensively, and it would take quite something to get through it. It's proper tough plastic, and when you have a good look at it as well, it does have like an outer protector on it as well. So you've got the plastic tank and then a little gap and then a thick plastic bit around the outside and underneath it. So it looks pretty well protected to me. I'm not sure if they sell something even more robust for like proper off-roading and heavy drops. But I trust that they've thought of that, you know? Wow, look at that! Woo! What a view. Oh my gosh. Honestly, you barely need any pressure on the brakes on this bike. And this engine just feels effortless as well up through the quick shifter. mean, I didn't even get this route suggested. I just looked on Google Maps and thought, that looks like a bit of fun, and it's the other end of the trail I was just on. You know, the thing I'm not mad about on this bike is the looks. But they do have the Northern 901 coming later this year, I believe, the Husqvarna take on this chassis and engine. But that's a cracking looking bike, and I think that might combine the best of, you know, Husqvarna's design language and this incredible bike. That said, I had the Tiger 900 last week, the Rally Pro, but it's hard to compare it like for like because they spec'd it up with all the crash bars and luggage, which was really cool for doing that kind of long distance review I did of it. But I think probably a better comparison is they dropped off a 850 Sport, the new Tiger 850 Sport, at £9,300, and that feels like probably a better comparison with this bike because it has non-adjustable suspension, it has a lower seat height, it's at that lower price point as well. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes peeled next week for a head-to-head with that bike, because I have them at the same time. This isn't going back until end of next week, when I'll be swapping it for a 1290 Super G car, and I'll have that for a week, and then I'll get the 1290 Super Adventure S with the adaptive cruise control, which I'm really looking forward to. Can't wait to try that out. I thought it was great on the RT when I rode the BMW, but yeah, I definitely want to do some more miles with it because I only zipped up and down the motorway on like a press day, and I was, you know, filming a few bikes that day, so some real world testing of it would be great. Also swapping the Urban GS next week for the 1250 GS, and then what else have I got planned? I'm going to ride the new Bonnevilles, the Street Twin and T100, the week after next. I'm going to Harley Davidson next week to film the Pan America. They're going to let me do a walk around of it. I haven't got a ride on it yet, unfortunately. But I also am going to take out the Street Bob 114, I think. So that's the kind of cruiser, ape-hanger type thing. But I think before this year, it was only available with the smaller version of the Milwaukee 8 V-Twin. Now they've put it with the 114, so I'm looking forward to riding that as well. But as you can see, we're getting a bit of rain now, and I think that's going to be the story for the next couple of weeks, just having to ride when I get the chance. Anyway, let me turn the GoPros off, and I'll switch them back on when I get to Baffle Haus. All right, so here we are at Baffle Haus.
Yeah, I do in a car or on a bike.
Cars in here. Plenty of bikes out as well today for a Thursday. So just a quick walk around there on the GoPro, nothing fancy today. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know how you're getting on in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.
Do you mind if I don't play on pace?